Welcome back to a new episode of the Everyday Ceremony.
Hello, Anna, and welcome to the Everyday Ceremony. I'm really, really happy that we made it after weeks and months of trying, but not getting together. And so, yeah, now we're here, and I'm really, really happy to have you and to welcome you on here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's really exciting.
But I actually wanted to start you in the very beginning because I know that you work with the subconscious mind, you work with beliefs, with patterns. One of the tools that you use is hypnotherapy. And I actually watched a movie with my wife the other day, and there was this magician guy, and he was doing hypnosis. And so now it sounds similarly, and what this guy was doing was basically putting people in a trance and like telling them to do weird shit. And I just wanted to maybe ask you to clarify the difference between hypnosis and hypnotherapy. And because when I watched it, I was like, this is kind of sketchy. Like, I would not want to book a session with Anna and then she makes me do weird shit, you know? But I guess it's not the same thing, but I don't know. So I would like to ask you, maybe you could, yeah, just bring some clarity in here. What is maybe the difference between hypnosis and hypnotherapy?
That is honestly such a good question for a first question as well. So, what you're not what you're seeing is like what we would call like stage hypnotism. So,
Okay.
stage hypnotism and hypnotherapy are two very different things. Now, what movie did you watch just to start with, just so I can?
It was actually a series. It was called Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Okay, so like what they would probably do is like they probably click someone into place and like they could say like sleep, they sleep, awake, they awake. And so it's really interesting how stage hypnotism works because everyone can go into a trance. You go into a trance every single day, right? So you go into a trance when you're driving a car, when you're reading a book. You're going from this like multiple different stages of your consciousness, you know. So anything that involves repetition is a trance. It's that daydream state. And so what you do when you're doing stage hypnotism or any hypnotism in that sense is that you kind of put the person into that trance and then you shock them to go even low. So, and then what they do is they create these repetitive cues. So, for instance, my like one that I use is like deeper. So, once you use a certain amount of repetition, you can actually get someone to go deeper and deeper. They could say sleep and stuff like that. So, but the thing about specifically stage hypnotism or street hypnotism, you can only hypnotize a certain kind of person. Now, anyone can go into a trance state, anyone can be hypnotized. But when it comes to stage hypnotism, there's only like a 10% amount of people that can be hypnotized. But the thing is that they're able to pick it in a crowd by using certain words and seeing the reactions on your face and saying that person.
Mm.
It's the highly extroverted people who can actually go into it easy because they don't care. If you were very introverted, you wouldn't be able to. You could if you were doing a
Yeah.
hypnotherapy session. And so that's when hypnotherapy is different. That's just putting someone into hypnosis. But the thing about hypnosis is if you don't want to go into it and you're not open to it, you won't. You are in full control of what is happening. You know, your subconscious mind is just letting it happen. Um, you know, again, for stage hypnotism, it's just really extroverted people who just want to have fun to do it. So you can see a lot of like hypnotism in movies where they're able to like take control of people. That's not possible. But if you look at stage hypnotism, if you go on YouTube and stuff like that, you can see people will pretend to be a dog and a lot of different stuff. But there is a part of them that wants to experience that. So they let the hypnotist, I guess, take control isn't the word, but I'm just going to use it now, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
What makes hypnotherapy different is we put you into hypnosis. So we pretty much, people say, oh, do you get put to sleep? And no, you do not get to put to sleep. You're completely aware, you're completely awake. Even when you're in stage hypnotism, you're completely aware of what you're doing. You're just more in this confused state. And instead of you having your own conscious mind, the stage hypnotist is the conscious mind, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
commanding the subconscious to speak and to act like a dog or whatever it is. And so where hypnotherapy comes into place, anyone can be hypnotized. If I have someone, a client who I can't hypnotize, which has only happened to me twice, it's one of two reasons. One, they do not trust me. Second, they do not trust themselves. And majority of the time, it is they don't trust themselves.
Yeah.
If you're booking a session with me, you automatically trust me. So what we do is we put you into a trance. So we just turn off your conscious mind. Your conscious mind is a part of you that is able to lie, is able to bullshit. Your subconscious mind doesn't, in that sense. You know, we are our biggest bullshitters. It's why like therapy can do really, really well, but we have our own ego. We want to be seen a certain way. We want to act a certain way, even if we're not even aware of it. You know, we're not conscious of that. So how hypnotherapy works is we put someone into like a more meditative, relaxed state, turn off their conscious mind. And so we have access to their entire subconscious where they're not able to cloud things or bullshit things or let that ego come into place. And so a lot of the time that's where we have, you know, locked memories and just a lot of trauma and everything like that as well. So a lot of the times when we're having these really toxic or negative habits, you know, a lot of the time we don't know the reason why. And because it's a blocked memory, it was so traumatizing that our body goes into this like triggered reaction. It shocks, it freezes, blocks it out. And so that's when a trigger is formed, when we have these really, really negative reactions to things in our life. But what hypnotherapy does is it just allows us to go and we don't relive the memory, but we release it in that sense. There's a lot of different examples and different areas, but that's just a quick version.
That's amazing. No, it's beautiful to hear that it only really works on the foundation of agreement and trust, and that it's like really. I think it's important for a lot of people to know that they're kind of still in charge, and if they really don't want to go there, like you can't make them go there, but it can definitely be you can be a facilitator in that sense of like helping them to go to places where maybe they could not go by themselves because there is some kind of protective pattern that has been established to actually not experience that pain or experience that traumatic experience over again. And so it's beautiful to just see that it's nobody can really fuck you up with it. It's actually it can only be really used to help, right? It cannot really be used as a weapon or as a thing to fuck you up.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I'm the guide, you do the work. Like, the thing about hypnotherapy as well is that the subconscious actually talks in a different language. Obviously, I'd still be speaking English, but it doesn't understand certain metaphors. It doesn't understand certain forms of speech. The subconscious doesn't even understand the concept of time. You couldn't say past or anything. So that's the hardest part about navigating the subconscious mind, or whatever you want to call it, the unconscious mind, is that that's what I am trained in doing, is talking to it differently and guiding you. You do the work. But it's interesting, you said the whole thing around control. Like when I first started getting hypnotherapy done, and like I was going through like a spiritual awakening and all this other stuff. And like people in my family were like, but they're going to start to control you and they're going to do all this. And they were getting really like, it was just so funny, like their reactions to it. And then my brother asked me a question, like, could they like get you into a cult? Could hypnotherapy or hypnosis put you into a cult? And I said, yes, but only if I already wanted to be in the cult.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So I couldn't, if you wanted me to like do something and I didn't want to do it, be like, no. My subconscious mind would be no. But if I already wanted to do it subconsciously, 100% you could. So if any bad things happened out of a place of hypnosis, it's because you already secretly wanted that to happen.
Wow, very interesting. So it's basically just allowing things to surface that are already there. It's not creating anything that isn't within you already.
Yeah, pretty much. Like you do a lot of work with like the belief systems. So if you're wanting to find more confidence, or if you're wanting to get over people pleasing or something like that, that's something I work with a lot. But we first look into the reasons. Okay, so why do you people please, and why don't you have confidence? What happened to you for you to believe that you're lower than others? Because no one is born with low self-worth.
Yeah.
There are specific events or a big event that has happened for that to cause. And then what we do after that session is we'll go into more hypnotherapy sessions, but working on subconscious reprogramming. So, like allowing memories to surface of when you were confident. And then I can help create triggers and words. So every single time you take a deep breath, you will feel more confident, you'll feel more alive, you'll feel more relaxed. So I can actually implement words in their subconscious. So for the future, if they take a deep breath, they can actually reset themselves. So I can help create better habits through subconscious reprogramming. Yes.
That's
but again,
beautiful.
you have to want that for it to work.
Yeah, sure. You'll have to want that, and as you said, like the confidence does not come out of nowhere, but the confidence was there at a certain point, right? Like it's just that something else happened that maybe kind of blocked that access to that feeling of self-confidence and deservingness and enoughness. And so you just help that person basically maybe break down that illusion, break down that protection mechanism that actually holds them back from accessing that feeling of deservingness, of being enough, of being confident and strong and loving themselves. And so it's helping people recalibrate into their natural state of being, kind of.
Yeah, 100%. Because like, we look at a lot of like the mental health these days, and you'll see like the one, it's such a common thing is, my mum has anxiety, so I have anxiety. And so like, yes, you have anxiety, but that is not who you are. That is majority of the time. Like there are some genetical, things that we can pick up from family, but majority of everything statistically is a belief. It's a learned habit. It's really, really common if you have a family member that sits in the mirror and goes, I'm fat and I'm ugly, and you see that as a child, okay, so that's what I'm going to do. As a baby, it's like my favorite analogy that my facilitator who taught me hypnotherapy uses, as a baby, like we are a blank paper, like a blank piece of paper. We love ourselves so much that we even enjoy rolling in our own feces. Like that's how much we love ourselves. Like, yeah. And like, if we want food, give me food. I'm going to cry. I want attention. Give me attention. Like there's not this idea of like, oh, is that people pleasing? Oh, is that not okay? When we want something, we do it. But then over time, these belief systems, oh, you can do this, you can't do this. This is your name. This is your family. Your mum struggles with this. This is what's expected of you. And so our entire persona gets created. But as we are born, our self-worth is high. It's really, really interesting that there's a point at around 7 years old. So before 7 years old, we don't actually have a subconscious. Everything we're doing, we're conscious of. And then we hit this age of 7, and everything that was like conscious of becomes our subconscious. So majority of the way we look at ourselves, the way we believe ourselves, our ability to show up in life happened before the age of 7.
So that's like the time frame that you then work with most of your clients, is like that time from being born to 7 years old, because that's where like most of the roots have actually started to grow, and everything else is kind of based upon the first 7 years.
I'd say like 60% of the time. Yes.
Yeah.
60%. Like obviously there's a lot of things that can be created, like, being bullied in high school and stuff like that, that can really like detriment you. But, even if we will go into that memory of them being bullied, we will also go into that memory, and then sometimes we'll go even back to when their own, parent would belittle themselves, sit there and belittle themselves, like, oh, you can't do anything, you're so crap at this. And so seeing how their family member talk to themselves like that allowed them to let situations in for them to be belittled as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
So it's like, sorry, go ahead, please.
No, that's it.
Okay. So it's
Yeah.
kind of still that there, even though there is, or there might be experiences later on in life that do have an impact and that can be called traumatic, and so on, are still being maybe attracted from a certain field of belief that might run in the family, or that might have just been lived out by the parents or early on in life, just as an example, basically. Like, it's the kind of nurture of a person, like that kind of field that they got exposed to, that then they kind of carry within them, and that then attract something later on in life that is then not before 7, but kind of already the seed got planted before that. So
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
lot in those first couple of months and years of our lives that determine how, if we don't pay attention and if we don't work with those beliefs and with those patterns, that could then run the rest of our life, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And like, you don't have to go all the way to like what is the root cause of the exact situation,
Mm-hmm.
but just simply becoming conscious of, the habit that you're doing, even looking at like you're looking at your week or something like that. Like, is there a day every single week that's bad? Is there a time in the day that's always bad?
Mm-hmm.
That itself is a pattern. But yeah, planting the seed is a very, very good analogy to use for that. Definitely. Like you can go through many traumatic things later in life. Like for an example, um, one of my clients that we went through, she was this massive, like she was an athlete. She used to compete around the world and everything like that. And she was driving and got into a car accident. She became a paraplegic for 2 years.
Mm.
And before that, she had this fit, healthy, amazing body. And then suddenly she's got nothing. That's absolutely traumatizing.
Mm-hmm.
And she ended up like getting better. And then 10 years later, we did a session and she was like, I really want to let go of this experience. I want to let go of this trauma because like, I just feel like it's holding me back. Her body, she was still feeling like all this pain and everything in her body. And when we went back to the experience, we didn't actually go back into the car accident. We went back to her thoughts when she was having the car accident.
Mm.
And her thoughts of when we're having the car accident was when she was a child and she was the oldest of 8 siblings. Her father and mother never allowed her to go to school or anything like that. She had to look after her siblings and she always had to overwork herself to be appreciated and to be seen. She always had to push herself past her boundaries. She had to break her body in order to be worthy. And then her body broke again.
Wow.
And so letting go of this need that in order to be seen, in order to be worthy, that I have to overwork myself and I have to be more than I am, that I have to push my boundaries. So it's interesting when we do have these traumatic things that happen to us when we're older, what were we thinking about? What was happening in that moment for us to not be present for it to happen? I mean, multiple different things can happen, but again, the mind is such a magical, psychedelic place. It's crazy.
It's so interesting that you said, or that you touched upon this thing, is like when those traumatic things happen, it oftentimes is really interesting to look into where we were in our mind. Like, obviously not present in the moment, because probably present in the moment. If we come back to what you said about babies being born into this world as like this blank sheet of paper and actually being fully deserving, is like, why would I wish myself those things? But if there is this experience of, for example, always having to break myself, always having to outwork myself to even just get attention, not even maybe be loved in the way that I needed really, but just to get some attention. And I think about that and I'm still like living somewhere in my mind in this reality. Of course, then this is a completely different reality that we create in the present moment, yet not really in the present moment, but from the past. And so it's interesting how much like potency those thoughts and those beliefs at the end carry, because they really are commanding our bodies to do certain things and to develop certain ailments or challenges or blockages or tensions or whatsoever, based upon what we believe we deserve and what we believe about the world at large and ourselves. And I would be curious how you actually went down that path. Like, how did you actually start to get interested in that whole field of beliefs and patterns and hypnotherapy and working with the mind and the subconscious and all of that? Just happened one day, or is there a little bit of a pre-story?
Oh, definitely. Are you okay if you hear some like childhood trauma on this?
Fuck yeah.
Okay, yeah, cool. So I guess for my like little backstory on me is like I had parents who were kids that had kids. They
Mm.
like drink, did drugs. So I kind of grew up in a very chaotic household. I'm one of three, got three brothers. So I looked after my brothers. Both my parents had severe mental health problems. My mum had like, you know, severe depression, bipolar. My dad was like suicidal and stuff like that at certain points. So it was really like I guess just a chaotic household. But and I didn't really realize how bad it was. Like things got better and things good. My parents now are amazing people. Like they're really really awesome. But from that 0 to 7 age, that was probably my most hardest periods of my life. Like at the age of 7, I decided to stop crying because it didn't serve me. I just got bad
Mm.
reactions. I got abuse and stuff like that. And so I didn't cry from 7 till the age of 18. I just disassociated myself. And so when I first started doing the work on myself, I was a very different person to where I am now. I was quite masculine in like the sense of like I've always got to be doing, I've got to push myself and I got to work hard. I had a very bad mindset when it came around money and receiving and a lot of different things. Like I used to like I've broken over 22 bones in my body because I would just push myself to breaking point, similar to the client I was talking to you about before. You know, could never feel enough. Like I used to be a backpacker. I used to live in a van. I remember literally climbing a mountain. But then before I finished climbing that mountain, I would see the next one and be like, I need to climb that one. I couldn't even be present in the achievement that I'd done.
Mm.
It was always the next, go, 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 go. And just always unsatisfied to the point that I would break. And then my bones would break. I'd be forced to be stagnant. And then I'd go into severe depression.
Mm.
And that was just the pattern, constant. So I actually started getting hypnotherapy done on me. I went through this like spiritual awakening and I was like, okay, I'll just hire this like spiritual hypnotherapist. And, one of the first memories that we went into was when I was 6 years old and my mum tried to kill me. And that memory that we released and we let go and we did all this inner child healing and all this forgiveness. And it wasn't about forgiving my mum. It was actually about forgiving myself because I believed I deserved to die. I believed that I deserved to be abused. I believed that I deserved to be punished. So once I actually released that memory in myself, I no longer had this need to push myself past my boundaries and to punish myself, to break myself. I forgave myself. I'm not the reason that my mum's sick, because that was the belief that was created as a child. So for me, like I got lots and lots of sessions done, but I went from this person who just hated themselves, who was either in this like really, really high stage of confidence and just like high masculine, like I've got this, to like severe depression. I could not get this balance of like, I'm comfortable in myself. I can sit still. So hypnotherapy for me allowed me to bring all these patterns and all these beliefs, to make them conscious and to work through them. Now, it's important to know that hypnotherapy doesn't just like suddenly like fix you. It just brings it to the surface, lets it go, but it's the integration that you do after that really makes the effects. The habits that you put in after, the way you talk to yourself after. But yeah, for me, like hypnotherapy really saved me, because that specific memory that I told you there, I had no idea that existed, did not remember it. Because for me, that was, a really hard thing as a child. So you automatically put it to the back of your brain. Like you don't have there's no such thing as like not remembering. Your mind will remember everything. It's just about accessing it, which is the difficult part.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. There was so many little bits in there that resonated a lot with me. Even though I had a completely different experience as a child, there is quite similar patterns that established themselves. Like when you said that with like hiking up that mountain and then already seeing the next one, I was like, oops, I know that one. It's like when it's just never enough, when there is like the achievement basically brings the confidence seemingly, but it actually never satisfies. So that is the thing that actually also kept me running and running and running and running and running, whereas like I couldn't sit still. And then I would always come to a place when I would injure myself and I would have to sit still. And exactly as you described it, that's when the depressive phase kicked in again, because I was actually realizing how much I didn't like myself, like how I was actually doing everything. Yes, exactly. How I was actually doing everything in my life to run away, or even those really high achievements that I was going for at a certain point were like punishments, because they were so hard and actually so draining on my body. But I believed that I had to actually be punished, because I got punished as a child as well. It's like not in the ways that you just described it, but in other ways where I got compared with other students in my class and they were always better than me in a certain way. That was punishment. And then I was a little bit chubby, and then I would not be allowed to have sweets anymore because I was chubby. And so there was so many reasons why I was not right and why I was deserving to be punished, that at a certain point when the punishment from home felt away, I was still there punishing myself because I still believed that this was wrong. Like actually everything about me was wrong, even though I was not chubby anymore, and I was a smart guy, and like so many things changed. But the one thing that didn't change was what I believed about myself. And that's so interesting to see and to just remember as well. It's like everything in our lives can actually change, but if our belief about ourselves doesn't change, then we still live in our little probably fucked up reality, and we say that the world is against us or that nobody loves us, even though everybody might be actually cheering you on, but you can literally not perceive that. And that is so interesting to hear from you, that that was a thing that carried through your life for a long time. And then when you actually just created awareness around that and you saw that, like at the end, it was about seeing that situation and seeing that belief and seeing that kind of reality that got created for you in that moment, that actually opened up opportunity to be different. And that's really beautiful to see, that it's like, oftentimes I still feel like there is a lot of emphasis put on, like, you gotta do different things. Like, you gotta just change. And then if you change, then your life is going to change. But the question is, like, which part of yourself actually changes? Like, if you just try to change things in your day-to-day life without actually changing the underlying belief about your reality, probably not much will actually change, right? Or what is your kind of perspective on that?
Yeah, definitely. Like it's a big thing. Like you'll see people like, I need to get a new job, things will be different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, things will be different if I get a new friendship group. I'm gonna go live in another city. And you see these people, and like I mean, I feel like everyone can relate to this in some sort of way. It doesn't change. The same situation happens. But you got to look at it as, and you know, physical change can help a lot. So if you know, like actually being aware and being like, so let's say like you just like shit's happened, it's been crazy, and you want to like move to a different city. That's like a very common thing I think a lot of people do these days. And like, yeah, do that, because the physical change can help so much, but you also need to be aware of the mental. So if you're looking at like, if you have like lots of relationships, whether it's like, um, you know, like a loving relationship or a friendship relationship, and you're always being belittled. Okay, so what part of you feels worthy to be belittled? What part of you is addicted to that?
Mm-hmm.
How does that validate you? Does that make you feel like a victim? Does
Mm-hmm.
that give you attention? You know, a lot of times when people are being like quite abused, or if you're in like this abusive, like yelling, like relationship, like you never got attention as a child, or you got a lots of attention. You know, what part of the relationships that you have around you, the situations you have around you, what part of that is the same as childhood? Because what your childhood was. So for me, living in a highly chaotic childhood, people either being super, super chaotic or completely disassociative, that's normal. And
Mm-hmm.
because that was normal, that's safe. You know, I was in a relationship for so long where my partner would just disassociate from me. If he saw me upset, or if he saw me like anything but happy, he would just disassociate from me and just not talk to me for ages. But that's what my parents did. So that's safe. That's normal.
Mm.
So I think like physical change is like, great, do it. But do some inner work, do some shadow work around why those situations happened in the first place. Because every situation that we have in our life, part of us is addicted to that, and that is validating for us in some
Yeah.
sort of way. Like oftentimes when you have these really egotistic people who cause lots of drama, you know, like causing drama was the only ever way they got seen and heard as a child. Like I had a friend who was one of five and was was the eldest and never got attention. So she had to create these massive scenarios and be really hysterical because now I get attention. Now I get seen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or it could be the opposite. Yeah.
It's very interesting. You mention like attention a lot. And so that it kind of all comes down to how we were able to get attention from like the world around us as children, and how we actually all are still in some way like addicted to that attention from the outside, and like that we do sometimes really crazy and really unhealthy and really disserving things to ourselves and the world around us to get attention. What would you see as like a way out of that, like a different kind of way of getting that attention instead of like constantly seeking it on the outside? Like what is, also you talked about integration, like what are, for example, practices, what are habits, what are certain things to implement to actually get out of that constant cycle of seeking attention from the outside?
Really big question. Yeah, so I think like the first, like there's a process I do with clients with this, and it is quite a slow process, I would say, because as much as we live such a fast life, our mind does work quite slow. Like the average way to get rid of a habit is what, 3 months or something like that. That's like the average time. So I work on the same bias of like, when we're wanting to stop a pattern or stop a certain thought, we need to work on it like for 3 months consistently to really be able to get it. So the first part is just like simply being aware of it. Like, okay, I'm triggered. Why am I triggered? We don't have to know why, but just I'm triggered. First week, I'm triggered.
Mm-hmm.
Second week, why am I triggered? How am I triggered? Third week, where do I feel this in my body? What does it feel like? Fourth week, what does this remind me of? Can you hear that noise? No, cool.
Yeah. No, it's good.
Yeah, so like, what does this remind me of? What feeling does this like? Yeah, what feeling does this?
Okay, let him do his job. It's probably the garbage truck, no?
No, someone's on the roof.
Ah, it's a drilling
Yeah,
machine, right? Or what is it?
yeah. Is it quite loud?
Yeah, pretty much. But let's see. Okay, he's pretty consistent.
Yeah, we'll see though. We'll see. Okay. All right, I'll continue. So, where was I?
Yes. I think
So
week 4.
fourth week. So we got like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so like just getting into it, and then like the last one that you really want to get into is like, what does this remind me of? What does this feeling remind me of? Does it remind me of when, I had to be silent because that's what a good girl does. That's what a good boy does. Do I freeze because of that? Because it's easier to be small than it is to be heard. So that's a little process there. And then once you get through that point, I go, okay, so if it's like I need attention and I want to be loud, like, okay, so how can I hear myself? If I'm needing other people to hear me, how can I do that myself? Because there's that whole thing of like, we just need to be able to feel the love for ourselves. Like no one can fulfill you, only you can fulfill yourself. Like you can have a loving relationship with a partner, but at the end of the day, it's the ability for you to feel comfortable in yourself, to feel comfortable in the relationship, right? So asking like questions of like, okay, so I feel unheard, I feel unseen. Okay, so how can I see myself? How can I hear myself? What do I need to do in order to fulfill this in myself?
We definitely have somebody on the roof who wants attention.
No, it was a roof, and then now it's like, oh, who knows? Who knows? That's South America, right?
It is. It is.
Yeah. But yeah, so just like asking yourself the question of how can I create this in myself? What can I do? What can I do to make myself feel loved, seen, heard, valued, respected? And like that can look different for everyone else, because what makes us feel seen, heard, valued, accepted is different for everyone. We're all like such different, diverse people. Like I can't say one thing works. It's the biggest thing I've learned in my own business is I think we go to school and we all learn the same way. And I No, I think that's bullshit. Like, I think we're all so different and we all need to do things differently. We all have different likes, wants, needs. So, yeah, what it is to you, there's no like specific thing, but whatever makes you feel loved, whatever makes you feel safe, whatever makes you feel valued, how can you do that yourself? And just working
Mm-hmm.
with that process really slowly. It depends on the client. Like, some clients will do it in like a month, other ones can take up to like 4 months. It just really depends on your own
Yeah.
speed. In that sense, I'm not a big fan of pushing. I used to be a big pusher, but now learning that like we all learn so differently, and we all have things that we're good at and we're bad at, and that's okay.
Yeah. But so what I hear you say is that the process itself is like very unique for everyone, because as you said correctly, like we are all unique. And I think the whole idea of, oh, we have one school system, or like one like nutrition plan, or one workout plan, or this or that, and that will fix us all, that kind of creates a lot of problems in the first place. So there is like a very individual process to everyone, yet there are like some corner points, like, for example, first of all, accepting that things are the way they are right now, and then
Yeah,
looking into those things and finding compassion in there, and being gentle with oneself, and then
yeah,
taking responsibility, and actually stepping into one's power of like providing that attention and love and safety that we seek for ourselves, and in that process being patient, is kind of, there's still a lot of room to wiggle, and there's still a lot of room to actually bring the uniqueness in there. But I loved how you put that there is a certain process of like, you will have to accept yourself with your experience. Otherwise, you will still be probably in some kind of pattern of running away, or hiding, or avoiding, or freezing, or fighting, where from that you can't really change, because you're trying to avoid actually the pattern with your pattern. And so this acceptance part is very powerful, and I think like the stepping stone, like the first kind of entry point into that whole process, right? Like really allowing yourself to actually be the way you are. It's like, when I work with clients, there is oftentimes the question, how do I get rid of my trauma? And I'm like, we gotta work on that. Like,
yeah,
you can't get rid of your trauma. Like, the situation itself won't ever leave. Like, it's in the past. Like, it has happened. Like, you won't wiggle around with that. But what can change is the perception. And the perception right now is, I want to get it out, meaning there is a lot of resistance there. Whereas if we can come more into acceptance and openness, it's a completely different ball game. Like, we play a literally completely different game in a completely different reality. And that is, yeah, it's beautiful that is also such a important point in your work, is like that acceptance and that seeing. And in the beginning, not even understanding why, like in the first week, not even understanding why or how or whatsoever, but just being like, oh yeah, there's something there, and it's somewhere within me, like it's somewhere within my body. And that already established kind of a relationship, and then out of that can be created a responsibility, and actually an empowerment of like, oh, it's within me. It's like, it's not my mom, it's not my dad, it's not my teacher, it's within me, so I can actually work with that. And so I really love that process that you actually talked into, with those weeks of like patiently kind of getting to know those parts, those beliefs, and then slowly starting to work with them.
definitely. And like, I love what you said around like the acceptance. Like, it's so true. It's so true. Like, the thing is, yes, we live really, really fast paced lives, but our mind works really, really slow. And when people often have relapses or they get re-triggered, like it happens all the time. Someone will be doing all this inner work and they'll be like for like a whole month, they've just like been like, go, 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 go. Like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, I'm like, this is great. And then something will happen and they'll relapse fucking hard into these like really bad toxic habits. And it's because they just overloaded themselves. Yeah, so they they just overload themselves with so much, because like your brain is moves really, really slowly. Like you can move really, really fast once you train it up to a certain point. You can take a lot less, but like you do have to work quite slow with yourself, because if you do push it too fast, you can have a relapse. And so like being gentle, and like the biggest thing that I had to learn, like still something I'm still learning, is just like not beating yourself up, and not going into that stage of like, you know, like this didn't happen perfectly, which means I'm not enough or I'm too much. Like, no. Like, one thing I often tell myself and tell my clients when they're not happy with themselves, or if they reacted in a certain way, or if they get triggered, I still get triggered. Like, that still happens with me. And like something I try to tell myself all the time. I'm like, or even if you go into like a regret of like, I can't believe I reacted like that 2 years ago or whatever, you know, going back to my something, you did the best you could have done with the knowledge and belief systems you had. I am proud of you. Like, really taking it back, because beating ourselves up, treating ourselves like shit, being bullies, it doesn't help. Like, there is that like discipline that you need, and that's different. But treating ourselves like shit, you're just re-traumatizing yourself.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to hear you say that. And it's like, of course, like I know that. And still, when do I really take that time to appreciate myself? It's like, it's still one of the things where, like, as you said, is like, that's one of the things that I also work on, or like with myself, is like really taking that time and just giving myself a pat on the back and maybe even a hug, and just laying down on the couch. I actually did that just before we started recording. I just laid on the couch and gave myself a hug, and I was just like, you're doing great, man. Because there were so many thoughts about like, how's this going to go? And it's like, I recorded over 100 podcasts already. I think I had, I don't know how many guests, like 20, 30, whatsoever. Like, it never was shit, you know? Every conversation was different, but it's like I always did my best, and I know that, and it was always a beautiful conversation. No matter if there was like some background noises here or there or whatsoever, it doesn't matter. But still, there is this belief somehow of that I need to be punished because something with me is just wrong. Whereas, like, it doesn't need to be even a certain like specific thing, but it's just still there is a layer of that belief still there that I'm integrating and that I'm trying to hold more and more. And it's like, as you said, kind of, it's a slow process, and it's I think also not supposed to be fast, but even just the thought that it should be faster is already a judgment that how the process is going is not right, that there's something wrong with the process, which again, like, reinforces that same belief of like, oh my God, I should be fixed already, which is like, you are whole, bro. Like, you good. Like, there's literally nothing wrong. It's just this entire mind game that you've been playing. And so it's very interesting how we talk about these things as well, where it's we say like, oh, I'm still working on that, as if it would stop at any time. It's like, of course you're still working on it, because this is your fucking life's work. And it's so interesting how there is, I think this is, and I would be really curious to hear your opinion about that, but I feel like that this is kind of like a human condition in general, and condition is the wrong word, but a human thing in general, that we think that at a certain point there will come a resolution that will make us like feel free and complete and at peace forever. And that is actually the very thing, like that expectation or that hope is kind of really taking us out of the present moment, and is really taking us out of that freedom and out of that wholeness and out of that sensation of peace, because we still urge and surge and like kind of want to get somewhere else where it is different. Like we want to come back to the Garden of Eden instead of allowing Garden of Eden to be here right now. Like it's very interesting how there is still this very future based kind of lifestyle, and it's like everywhere somehow very subtle. And I would just like to hear like what do you like, what do you think about that? What do you feel about that? Is that a
Yeah.
human thing in general, or is that just me?
Yeah, no, I think that's like a human thing in general. Like I completely like see that and just agree with that. Like I think um one question I always used to ask one of my old mentors is like, when am I healed? When am I
Mm.
fixed? When do I stop having these intrusive thoughts? And it's I don't even remember what she said, but it's something that I learned. And I learned, I guess, how I learned was like falling in love with the polarity of life, understanding that if I want to feel happiness, because I'm a very happy person, but I'm a very happy person because I've experienced depression. Like we can't have one without the other. Like, we want to have certainty, we need to have uncertainty. Um, just like once I kind of found this acceptance that like there is beauty in the shit, that there is good in it, I began to become okay. Like I think the biggest thing for me is like, we all still have these intrusive thoughts and we all have this like low self and limiting belief. It's not to say that that doesn't go away, but the more you train your brain and the more you train your mind, the more you understand, okay, who's this talking?
Mm-hmm.
Is this me? Or is this part of me that fears living in the past, and who should I listen to? Like that's something I guess I came to understand. So I definitely agree with you. You still have that like, doesn't matter how many times you can do something, you could be a freaking expert in it, you look at these like sporting documentaries with these climbers or like these like boxes and stuff like that. And like, oh, when does the fear stop? And then no, I'm fucking scared all the
Mm.
time. They say things like that. Like it's not to say you don't get to this point of being fixed or healed. You just learn which voice should I be listening to,
Mm-hmm.
I guess. That makes
It's,
sense.
yeah, it's beautiful. What just came up for me while you were saying that is like we I think we learn how to be better observers, where
Mm.
it's like we have the left eye, we have the right eye. So those are already polarities. Those are already like one is more in the feminine and more in the intuitive and like life based perspective, and the other one is more in like the rational and the logic and like ending things, finishing things, achieving things perspective. And then why do we, for example, meditate is because we can get into the third eye, like we can get into the observer that actually allows both to be there. And it's interesting to see how even, or what means even, how I myself am still somehow striving for either the left eye or the right eye. Like I'm still striving for like either the masculine or the feminine. I'm like, oh my god, I'm too masculine right now, I gotta go more into the feminine, or oh, I'm too feminine right now, I gotta go into the masculine. Whereas actually this just keeps this polarity game
Yeah.
like flipping around, and it's like this, is it called a flipper, like this game where the ball just like
I like to say like the
I don't,
pendulum swing.
yeah, that is a lot more gentle and calm actually. But for me it feels more like the ball is going nuts in this machine. So but like it's really interesting how I think still sometimes that this is going to bring any relief, or I'm going to fix something within that if like I'm not doing enough, that I gotta do more. But it's actually just like, okay, now I'm hitting the pendulum into the other direction, meaning I will eventually swing back. And so actually the swinging will probably never stop, but if we can look at the pendulum and we don't identify so much with the pendulum itself, then it just might feel a lot more calm and a lot more peaceful. Because also talking about the yin and yang, like that symbol is very beautiful. And I don't know where I heard it, but it was that actually it is really neither about being in the masculine or being in the feminine, but it is really about being on the line between the two. Like being able to observe the two playing out and weaving, and like the yin and yang, if that would be animated by AI, that would be a wave. Like it would not keep the same proportions all the time. Like it would shift and it would weave and like just melt into one another. And now it's up to us to keep being on the line and observing those tendencies instead of, oh my God, this is to this or to that, and now I gotta do the exact opposite, hoping to come into balance. But actually what we do, we give that pendulum a big old swing, and then we are surprised when it's just getting more and more extreme in our life. And so I think this is maybe the answer to my question that I had in my head now. I don't even know if I said the question or not. But like how to kind of come to that place of wholeness or health or freedom or being healed is kind of taking that third eye, that third person, that observer perspective, standing on the line and just being like, oh, it's whole already. It's just constantly changing as well. It's just playing out, but it doesn't mean that something is broken. It's just constantly changing, and in a certain way I gotta fall in love with change. Like I gotta accept change. If not, I'm constantly gonna be trying to fix something and find stability that will never really occur in the way that I want it. So yeah, maybe that is
Yeah,
what I feel about that.
definitely. And like, I think it's important for people to know, like, yes, there's always that pendulum swing of
Mm-hmm.
whether it's masculine, feminine, or whether it's feeling like the lowest of lows to highest of highs. But, that's always going to be there. There's no such thing as being fixed or healed. But it doesn't mean that the pendulum swing has to be so intense each
Mm-hmm.
time. And that's the thing people need to learn is like, again, there's no such thing as fixed or healed, but the intensity of it does not have to be that intense. You can be in a state of not always balanced, but just comfortable in yourself and who you are, comfortable with stillness, okay with uncertainty, okay with
Mm-hmm.
conflict. You can get to a point where you're okay with people not liking you. You can get to a point where you're okay with being uncertain with money, with a situation, with being ungrounded. Like you can get to a state of mind where you have an acceptance to everything around you, but for you to accept physical things, you have to accept things internally first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what I hear you say is that to get to that point of like more and more and more and more acceptance with whatever is happening in the moment, like the foundation of that is that we really got to accept what has happened in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like, yeah, majority of us are living in the past every single day, every single experience. When someone is either freezing or react, like any kind of trigger, like a light freeze, a light reaction, conflict, that is a trigger, and that is you reacting to something in the past. Like one of the most common ones that happens to so many people, it's an example of bringing my brother into, is like he used to get so triggered when someone would ask him to do the dishes. The
Mm-hmm.
dishes, he would just be like, wow, he would just like go crazy. Like, and I feel like we all have this with cleaning. Sometimes to do with cleaning, but he would just go crazy around the dishes. But then after this is like years later, I would think about it, and I'm like, now I look back at that experience, but it's not that he was mad at you asking him to do the dishes. It was just like, you haven't seen what I've done.
Mm.
You haven't seen what I've done here, or here you don't hear me, you don't see me. All you see is what I don't do. Even though he reacted horribly over being asked for something simple thing, what was the actual meaning and the intention, the subconscious intention behind that?
Mm-hmm.
If you're mad at yourself for reacting too much or anything, like, there is a valid reason. Doesn't mean your actions are okay or someone else's actions are okay, but everything that you do, you say, you feel is valid. There's a reason for it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Beautiful.
Acceptance. I feel like
Yeah,
that's like the common word.
yeah. It is. And I had a question, and now I gotta accept that I lost it.
That's
And
hard, right?
don't try to find that question again. Um, no, it's just I'm also curious, like, how did your life change, like, since you developed like more and more understanding and more experience, like, with actually yourself, with your mind, with your beliefs and all of that? Like, did your life necessarily on the outside get more organized and less chaotic, or was it really more like a internal change that made it all seem differently, or both? Like, just like how did things shift in your perception?
So both. Um, but for me, I manifest weirdly. Like when I go through like a mental change, like if I can literally like go through, it happened to me the other day. Like I accepted uncertainty in my life, and then literally like I looked, there was $600 that was transferred to my account. Like I manifest in such a weird way. Like I'll go through a mental change and I will receive like instantly. It's very weird for me. Um, but for me, I think like it's actually tough. Like we say, like, talking now, and I'm sure it's the same for you, like, oh, I overcame this and this, and it was really great, my childhood trauma. But like now it's great. And now that I've got the awareness, it's like beautiful. But like during it, it was actually horrible. One thing that we don't talk a lot about when you're overcoming a pattern is going through this stage of, oh, I wrote it down the other day, but like you got to grieve. It's really, really normal. Like if you go into, let's say, like this has happened for me, where I go, this is with friendships. I used to have really toxic friendships, used to always be manipulated and stuff like that. And then I went into a friendship that was safe,
Mm.
and they weren't trying to manipulate me. That was scary. That was so scary.
Who are
Because
you?
yeah, because like that wasn't my idea of safe.
Yeah.
But what was created for me, like, you kind of have to go through this grieving stage of this like ego death. Like, things can suddenly change, and like you can have the life that you dream of, and you feel like absolute crap. And that's something that people don't talk about, because like you actually need to go through this stage of grieving, and you need to go through this processing in yourself that things are different, and for you to see it differently. Again, the brain works very slow. So
Mm-hmm.
many things changed. My relationships changed. My relationship with myself changed when I did the inner work. Like I was able to receive so much in my life, whether it was more abundance when it came to money, when it was more into relationships with people, acceptance, whatever. But to get to that place of where I was able to enjoy it, I also had to feel the heaviness of letting go of everything that I know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
hard. And that's one thing people don't talk about in any kind of like healing journey, is that process. There's a word, I literally had it the other day. I'm going to like look it up right now. So the withdrawal, that's it, withdrawal. Because you're
Mm-hmm.
addicted to a pattern, right? It's like a drug, you're
Mm-hmm.
addicted. And so that drug's been taken away. You're going to go through a freaking withdrawal stage, and that's going to be really tough and really hard.
Yeah. Fuck.
And so
That's
it's
good.
great. It's great, but it is hard. And I think people will be like, things will change, and the pattern's broken, and they don't feel happy. And something I tell clients, I'm like, it's okay. You're just in withdrawal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's okay.
You just did a cold turkey. Like, chill out.
Yeah. You
No,
just stop taking the heroin. It's
yes, no, this is great, and it's again a beautiful example of how the comfort zone, for example, works. And we always
Mm.
still think about like, oh, the comfort zone is supposed to be comfortable. It's like, yeah, but sometimes we get so comfortable in really unhealthy patterns, in really unhealthy ways of living and talking to ourselves and viewing ourselves, that getting out of that is kind of a danger. It is a danger to our comfort, it is a danger to our safety, even though this safety or this comfort is actually probably slowly killing us. It is probably growing some kind of disease and ailments within ourselves. It is making us be alone because we can't really be with other people for certain reasons. And it's just like, it is crazy how um this comfort is so strong, or this desire for comfort is so strong, that even though we kind of all know that if we put in that discipline and that patience and actually gentleness with ourselves, and like just sitting in that process of letting go and like in that process of change, that on the other side it will be way fucking better. But still, it is really scary to let go of that certainty of like, now I know who I am, but I don't know who I will be on the other side of actually being more happy and healthy and receiving more abundance and all of that. And so there is a big fear of, I feel like, uncertainty in that whole process. And this is also just a big part of that whole healing journey or awakening or whatever we want to call it, is that uncertainty. Like, you will not know. Like, you will have to at some point fall in love with not fucking knowing who you will be tomorrow, or who you might encounter, or how fucking amazing your life can be tomorrow, because you can't literally imagine it right now. Like, right now, I can still not imagine how nice my life will be in a year, because right now I still believe so many things about my life and about myself that I can't literally imagine how it will be without those beliefs. And that's interesting to just remember, that this freedom and this wholeness and this all those beautiful things that we want comes with the big paycheck of being like, you got to be fine with being in uncertainty. Like, you really got to be fine with not knowing. And that's, I think, something that you also kind of talked a little bit into, is like, you just don't know. And this process of not knowing is challenging, and it is difficult to let go of the certainty and to kind of take that leap of faith into the abyss and be like, okay, I have no idea who I'm actually going to be without that trauma, but now is the time to trust that. And of course, that's not an easy one. Like, it's not the comfortable path, because the comfortable path is to stay where we are at, with our beliefs, with our thoughts, with our emotions, and just be like, yeah, it's shit and I actually hate it, but at least I know it.
Yeah, and that's it. Like we can fall in love with the shit because we know what's going to happen. And like that's like a whole other subject of like trusting the unknown. Like that's like a it's a very, very hard process to get into. But like usually that's the reason why we stay in these toxic patterns, because at least we know it's going to be shit. At least we know the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that there's a level of safety in that. So yeah, 100% agree. It's it's a hard thing to learn, but it is a wonderful thing to learn. I think that's when you do find that like comfortability in yourself, is yeah, just like trusting that unknown. And like I always say it to my clients, but like fall in love with uncertainty. Like fall in love with the ability to do that. Fall in love with the ability of not knowing like who you're going to be. Like there's a literally got it written over here, but something I've been saying to myself every morning I've just started to do while I'm brushing my teeth or something in the morning, because I'm not at all who I imagine myself to be. I'm something entirely different and far more vast and strange. I've been saying that to myself every morning.
I might steal that or borrow that from you.
Yeah, I can
That
send it
feels
to you.
really nice. That feels really nice.
Yeah, because even if you have goals and you have dreams, you could still belittle yourself in some sort of way. Like, I feel like you're probably the same, but like I used to have like such big, big, big goals, and I would plan out my life like perfectly. And I kind of had to like release that, like still have goals and still have things, but not be so heavy with it
Mm-hmm.
in that sense. I've got more internal goals than physical now. Which is something I'm learning. I mean, I'm still learning the process of like getting good with that, and again finding that balance of too feminine, too masculine. I completely understand of that pendulum swing, but having goals and everything is really, really good to have, and having wants and stuff like that. But also having the understanding that you're going to be so different. If you told me 2 years ago I'd be doing this, like I'm in Colombia right now, living here, I wouldn't have known. I had a complete different plan for me. So
Yeah. I'm not who I believe to be. And some more stuff. But
I'll
that's
send it
good.
to you.
No, but that's just, it's great to have even just that. Like, I am not who I believe to be.
Mm.
Like, just that phrase is like, you can do some pondering on that. In whatever direction you'll go, it's probably freeing and it's probably uncomfortable because then it's like, oh my god, I don't even know who I am. And maybe that's actually the freedom we want, not knowing, like not being so attached, not being so heavy on like, I know where I'm going. It's like, why do we even want that? It's like, I know, like, I have certain directions that I want to go, but oftentimes those directions just cause me, or I cause myself in that having those directions that I carry around a lot with myself. And it's like, not just mentally and emotionally, but physically. Like when I go to the gym in the morning, I'm already thinking about, I gotta get groceries. So I take my backpack to the gym, and then after the gym I go grocery shopping, and then I walk back home with that big fucking backpack. And last week, one time I went without backpack because we had all groceries at home, but blankly I just didn't think so much about the future and that I had to get groceries. And oh my god, that was the most enjoyable walk to the gym because I didn't carry shit around with me, you know? It's like I just walked, you know, and I was walking the walk and I was like in the gym, and then after the gym I walked around again, and I didn't go to the supermarket where I wanted to go like all the other days, and it just felt more free. And it's just interesting to see how even in the day to day, it's like I have this goal list and I have my daily schedule. And even though I don't write it down, like I have it in my head, and there's somehow I know what I'm going to be doing next. And I carry that around with me in the moment while I'm doing something.
Mm.
And that's like, it's weight. And it's kind of, in a certain way, I want that certainty that I know that after the gym I go get groceries, that then I have groceries at home for blah, 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 blah. But I'm actually not open for any surprise or any kind of, somebody order pizza for me. Oh, sweet, I'll have that. You know, I didn't even have to get groceries. So it's kind of interesting to just see that, how if we get too attached to those goals and those things that we want to do with our life, it sometimes can end up in just us carrying around a lot of things, us carrying around a backpack of like, oh, I gotta be doing this. And in that process of going in that direction, not realizing that there is a lot of different avenues that we could go down that could be equally pleasurable, maybe even more pleasurable, don't require a fucking backpack, you know, because there might be somebody with a car standing down there who can drive your groceries home. So you might just meet a farmer where you can eat right on the farm, fresh from the tree, you know. And so it's just interesting to see how, if we don't pay attention, we can get ourselves easily caught up in a way of living that we think is perfect for us, but is actually adding a lot of weight to just us expressing ourselves moment to moment to moment. And so I love that sentence of like, I'm actually not who I believe I am. It's wow. That hits something within me. I love that.
I'm glad. Yeah, it's like the biggest thing I try to do to myself all the time and to my clients is like I constantly try to break my ego. Like your ego is a really good thing and there's a beautiful and amazing reason for it to be there, but like we also need to not allow it to be the one thing that controls us and controls our life, because we don't know who we are. Again, we're originally just a blank piece of paper. And like, you know, it's a big thing that like I've now changed a lot of my mentorship and with hypnotherapy is like being open to receive. Like you were saying before, maybe there's a car, maybe there's fruit on the side of the road, or like somewhere farmer, like, you know, how much of us actually want to receive more in life. And I'm not necessarily saying when it's in money, it can be in like love and appreciation, it can be gifts. Like the most randomest thing for me and the reason why I changed my mentorship to being more around receiving is like I literally receive crazy gifts from people like on the street. People just give things to me. And I've never had that before, but it's because I'm open to it. But we always want, if you want to receive more love, you know, are you actually open to receiving love in the sense that you can receive it without sitting there feeling, oh, I don't deserve this, without judging yourself? You know, when we want to gain more things in our life, when any kind of sense of abundance, and again, not just money, we need to look at it like, can I actually hold space for it and be comfortable with that? And that was like the biggest thing that hit me, I think. Start of this year was like wanting so much in my life, but then, and like doing all this work, like literally 2.5 years of just doing all this physical masculine work constantly, but then understanding that it's not that all the work I was doing wasn't working, it's just I wasn't open to receiving it. Yeah.
You planted, you did all the planting work, you put the seeds in the
Yes.
ground, you watered, you showed up every day. But then when it came to harvest time, you were probably already planting seeds on a different farm again, and you were just
Yeah.
like, why
Or
am
I
I
was
not
giving the fruits
receiving
away.
anything? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Like it's again, the mind
Beautiful.
is a psychedelic, crazy place. Like it's just it's so interesting around like we do need that balance of like that physical and that mental. Like obviously you need to do the physical work, but to receive it and to appreciate it and to feel love, we also need to do that mental, that emotional. Pendulum swing of balance. Again,
Acceptance.
acceptance. Yeah.
Acceptance. Coming back to the easy stuff. Ah, wonderful, Anna. It's been such a wonderful conversation. I really, really enjoyed that. I think we're in the process of wrapping it up. A couple of things still that, like, I still want to give you some space now if you want to speak into something that is really on your heart that you really want to share with listeners. Can be something about your offerings, it can be something about whatever just wants to come through you right now. And so yeah, stage is yours if there's anything right now that you'd like to share with the listeners.
Yeah, well, I guess there's two things. So if anyone's wanting to work with me, obviously just reach out, as I've got around through my Instagram and everything like that. Happy to do just like an entrance call to see what works for you or just point you in the right direction. The way I work is quite different. I do one-off sessions, but I do mentorships for however months and everything like that. It does change. Everyone's different. So that's, if you're wanting to work with me, that's how to do it. But second of all, I think the most important one is, I think just going back to what we were saying before of like, if you're in a hard time or if you're beating yourself up or, you know, something's not happening in the way it is, you're upset with yourself because of the way you treated a situation, you reacted, you know, just always remember that you're doing the best you can with the knowledge you've received in life. Like there is no reason for you to beat yourself up. There's no reason to be your worst enemy because every single action we do, every single thought we have, there's a reason for it. You know, we are all beautiful and we're all perfect. It's just that situations that have happened in our life has made us believe and act in a certain way, and everything is accepted. Again, going back to that acceptance. Yeah, that's probably
Wonderful. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. Information to Anna's account, Instagram, and also website will be down in the description. You can check her out. I would highly recommend you to check her out. And yeah, thank you so much for being on here, Anna.
No, thank you for
Really
having me.
fucking
I love
enjoyed it.
this.
And yeah, I have a feeling we're gonna do that at some point in the future again. We have, I think, a bunch of other topics to get into. So
Yes, love it. Awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me. I love this.
thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Everyday Ceremony. If you were able to get something out of it, or it just brought you some joy, some inspiration, some empowerment, make sure to give us a 5-star rating so that we can grow this show organically and bring it to an ever-growing audience. And also share it with individuals who you think could really benefit from this episode. I'm so grateful to have you as a part of this journey. I wish you a wonderful day, and I see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.